My career started straight out of school. I decided that college and university wasn't for me. I had a friend of the family that was in banking and sort of led me into banking. So that's kind of where I started in working on the cashier desk and just progressed through to the sales type of role because I was always aligned more towards that area. Started in sales, in branch sales, selling financial products. Did really well and was really successful. Was then approached to go into the high net worth space of private banking. Again, spent a couple of years in private banking. Did really well. A lot of my clients were then they were private clients in the sense of they were wealthy, but they all had business connections, which got me into looking at small and medium sized businesses as a potential career path. And then I was approached to go into that area of the business, which I did. Spent a couple of years in that. And then they were building a business banking center, and they wanted me to recruit people for that I was in that role. So essentially recruiting 120 of me to sit in a central building in Manchester, which that was interesting. That was over, I think it was like a 4-year period doing that. That was a really interesting role. And then the pull of Australia, you see your mates from back over, like they're going over there, and you're always the guy that's threatening to go over. It's like, yeah, I'll go, and then you don't. And then next year I'll go, and then you don't. And then, I had a particularly bad breakup, and just thought, you know what, here we go. Straight, booked a ticket, got on a plane, got to Australia, and that was that. And then, from there, I suppose it's quite a typical story of UK people, youngish people emigrating to Australia. Did the whole traveling thing. It was like, this place is great. I want to stay. How can I stay? And then you got to look into the visa side of things, and it's like, right, okay, well, what skills have I got that are leverageable? Can I sell? Have I done sales? Yes. And recruitment? Yes. At the time, I think you only needed to have, you didn't need a degree. You just needed like 5 years of experience to get a visa. So that was the path that I then pursued. It was my first foray into agency recruitment. During the business, in hindsight, wasn't the best business. Small business. Director was very much, it was his business, and that's what it was. And it was, but at the same time, it was the best sort of grounding to agency recruitment I could have got, because it was an area I'd never worked in a technology space I didn't know, which was business intelligence, and there was no data or database. So it was literally, there's a mishmash of data companies, something like that, and there's a phone, and there's your pitch, and you crack on. And it was literally 50 BD calls a day. That was the sort of target. And I had nothing. I was ringing people up asking who the head of IT was, and then trying to talk to them about a technology that I didn't really know much about, and it was painful. But you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about how to talk to people. You learn to get thick-skinned in the sense of people are just putting the phone down on you. And now, obviously, many years on, I can see why, because there was absolutely no value or relevance to it. It was me just sort of fishing for them to give me something. And to be honest, had they given me a job at that point, I probably wouldn't have qualified it. I would have just gone, yes, I've got a job, and here we go. So that was day in, day out for 6 months. Very, very, very difficult job. Didn't bill for them sorts of 6 months. And it was only then as I sort of thought, right, there's got to be more to this, because my friends were looking at, they were already in recruitment and they were doing quite well. It's like, there has to be more to this. I'm not that bad. And then, funnily enough, got speaking to another couple of companies, decided I was making the move to one particular company. And then sort of as I went in to tell my boss what had happened, he then, basically he started to just disable all my computers. He knew what was coming. He disabled my LinkedIn access, because he set LinkedIn up for me, because we never had it before then. It wasn't really a key factor of our job back in the UK, which is bizarre given the fact that recruitment is so heavily reliant on it. We didn't have that at the time. So then he basically fired me at that point, because I told him I was looking at other companies. And then I joined Command, which is where I spent 4 years. They had no technology division at all. when I joined, someone hadn't done anything in tech there for like 2 or 3 years. So I was tasked with starting it from the ground up, which I did. Built it up over 4 years quite successfully, was the top performing consultant across all 4 of them years, nationally across the business. And then, yeah, after 4 years, I was reached my ceiling, and we were going through our permanent residency application at the time. And me and my fiance decided that we always said, listen, as soon as we got our PR, we would actually go and travel. Just to, we feel like it's a sense of achievement. You've got to a point, you've achieved something. Now let's go and take a break and think about what we want to do. So thought about what we wanted to do. We wanted to go and travel. So we did. Then we hit 20 countries in 10 months. Yeah, amazing experience. Then we got back in January. As we were getting back, a friend of mine and somebody else that I knew that I'd worked with before approached me to help them start up a recruitment business focused on a few sort of key industry verticals they were looking at from the ground up again. And I said, yeah, why not? Because I didn't really have anything else at the time to sort of come back to. So we came back, sort of started getting that off the ground. COVID hit, so it kind of paused it for a few months, but we just plowed through, and yeah, we're sort of starting to kick some goals now, and this is where we are. Obviously, we have still a very long way to go within the business, but as a small business that started in COVID, like we're actually doing okay, and that's where we are at the moment. Worst career advice, to be honest, like whenever I've heard, I'm quite a straightforward person, and whenever I hear stuff that's sort of bad advice, or I kind of just don't pay attention to it. So it doesn't actually like enter my psyche to think, oh well, that was really bad advice. And I mean, there's loads of it out there. I think someone said once, you need to be in before everybody and out after everybody, from a working perspective. And when I first started in recruitment, going to command, that was literally how it was. Got to build it from the ground up, and I still knew not really that much about the agency world of recruitment. I was in it predominantly for a visa, so I was putting when I say the graft, I was in at 6:30, 7. I wasn't leaving till 7:30, building prospect lists, client lists, speaking to candidates, trying to understand the industry, trying to understand technology as a whole, because it was in that sense, it was still quite new. Now, obviously, again, years down the track, you can do things much smarter without necessarily working harder. The best career advice I've ever had, and I tell people about this all the time, is to document situations, however small, and keep an ongoing journal of these situations, however small. So whenever I'm, talking to candidates, particularly sales candidates, and we're talking, interviews, going for interviews, and everybody knows about the STAR methodology, the situation, what was it, task, what was required, action, what action did you take, and what was the result. There's a lot of people that get stumped on that because they then start looking around and they're like, God, where do I go for that? And you start racking your brain, and when you're purposely trying to think about something, you can't actually think about it. But the thing is, the idea is that when you document all situations that you've done something good, in recruitment, that could be a good client experience, a good candidate experience. It could be, something good that you've done as part of your internal team. Documenting everything just allows you to reflect on things. And, I've seen some interviews where people have interviewed exceptionally well, and the situation that they've used for their competency-based question has been, we could talk, it had been something minuscule in the grand scheme of, it wasn't super profound and, saved or made a customer X amount of money. It was a small thing, but it demonstrated the right values. And that was something that I got taught when I was working in the bank when I first started, because within the corporate world, particularly in a big organization, I find it's extremely prevalent in the sense of it's about what you can do and what you can demonstrate to your sort of managers and peers, because the business is larger. They don't necessarily always see and hear about all the good stuff you're doing. You have to keep it front of mind. And the way that you do that is by keeping a record of it, just to come back to. And even when you're going for interviews as well, what sets you apart from your counterpart, say in a role where you're one of 20 across a business doing the same job. What sets you apart aside from performance? And financial performance can be just one thing, because in sales particularly, sometimes you're just at a disadvantage because of your territory or your patch. That's just how it happens. But if you have ways to demonstrate other things that you've done, then yeah, that worked. That has worked very well. I wish I knew the importance of professional and personal development. So, and what I mean by that is, when you start your career and you're young, you do what you do at work and you work hard, and it's all this gusto. But you, outside of work, when I think back to my early to mid 20s, probably the last 10 years, how much work have I actually done on myself professionally and personally outside of work? And the answer is not a lot. And say recently, something that I've been looking into for probably a couple of years. I've been very involved, or really enjoying reading, business books and sales books and professional development books. More so out of interest, just because I like to see other people's point of view on a particular subject. But then that's always been like a common thing for me. And I've said to a lot of candidates, read books, read business books. Even if you don't have to read them and take notes, but just by reading them, you're picking a lot up by osmosis that you don't even realize, and a lot of stuff you can refer back to because it'll just pop into your brain. And I'm one of them people. I'm that annoying person at a pub quiz that will know everything about everything, and you speak to any of my friends and they will say the same thing. They'll be like, we'll be talking about a random subject. It could be like nature in the Antarctic, and I'll be able to pull out this fact from somewhere that I've heard somewhere, and they'll be like, how do you know that? And it's like, I have one of them memories that once I hear something, I never really forget it, and it'll just come out at the most opportune time, which makes me great at pub quizzes. So if you need someone for your pub quiz, call me. But yeah, there's that, I would say, the professional development piece. And then, over the last, I think, like I said to you, I've been doing this challenge, this 75 hard challenge, and that has almost put what I knew before about enjoying books and reading books. But when you do that, sometimes, things just take over, and then you don't pick the book up for a week or, for a couple of weeks. And yeah, you're kind of there. But one of the things on this challenge is you have to read 10 pages of a book every day, every single day. So you do it, first thing in the morning when you wake up with a coffee or whatever. It's like you read your 10 pages and your 10 pages is done. Now you add that up, 10 pages, an average. So let's just say an average book, an average sales or business or professional development book is circa 300 pages. That's one book per month. So that's 12 books in a year. There would be 120 books had I done that at the beginning. And 10 pages, even if you're a slow reader, will take you 15 to 20 minutes, I would say, tops. That, moving forward, that is a habit that I'm going to keep with me forever. Probably it's nothing work related. Probably the biggest mistake I made was when I was younger, and I mean younger as in sort of like high school. I was very, very, very good at rugby league as a sport. And when we were leaving sort of high school, and we all got, well, the team that we had. So the way it worked is, if you were good at in school in your club team, you then got selected to represent your town. If you were good there, then you got selected to represent your county, and then you would play nationally. And at the time, me and a few other players in our team who were, the better players, we were all signed to training contracts with professional clubs, which basically means you train with these guys 4 times a week. They put you through their entire sort of plan. You play in their development games. The downside to that, however, is that you can't go out with your mates. You can't drink. You're following a diet. Everything's kind of quite strict. And when you're, sort of like at that age where you're going to college, it was that decision time to make, making a decision. What do you do? And at the time, the decision I made was I went for the social side of life, and sort of kind of gave up on the full going professional. Now, the ironic thing to that is, let's fast forward, say, from that point 5 years, players that were in our team who weren't necessarily, I would say, the best players are playing at like the absolute elite level of both the Super League and the NRL in Australia and representing their country. So, I mean, I suppose the biggest mistake I made was just not pursuing it just to see how good I could have been. I would say that's probably something that now still kind of haunts me, but I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that have a similar sort of experience of playing sport to a high standard at a young age and then opting for one route instead of the other. The key to my success, I would say, would be continually looking to learn. I think so. When I look at my career and I look at probably the most relevant and successful time would be the recent time, which is working at Command, and I joined that business not knowing anything really about agency technology recruitment, aside from how to make 50 business development calls every single day. So, there's a lot of soft skills that you need to pick up on how to interview candidates properly, the value you actually add to a client with a candidate, how to approach them. Now, that was done, like I mentioned to you, it was working stupid hours, which wasn't really the smartest thing, but also in the outside of work and not necessarily just in work, and because I've always been into most recently trying to get development. The biggest success was really understanding what it is you're talking about. I think that has to be the key. And I try, so anything that I am, selling or any industry I'm involved with, I try to understand it as best I can so I can have thoughtful conversations and try and add value to people wherever possible. I would say that's probably the biggest success because I think you can translate that across all areas of life. If you're involved in something outside of work, how to be successful at it is surround yourself with people that are successful at it and learn from them. And I think that's the biggest thing. If I want to get better at sales, I read sales books and I try and, learn from people and just pick up little things. And if you can get 1% better every day, then you're on the track to doing really well. And there's lots of books out there around that. A book that I've recently just read, which again, is just setting up habits for life, is The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. Amazing book. It shows you that to do small things or to not do small things require the same amount of effort, but it actually shows you the curve going both ways. If you do what things are easy to do, but they're just as easy not to do, but it's the cumulative impact of doing them every single day that then shows you the success or not so much success.